healthcare abroad on this edition of Flourish in the Foreign on IG. Hey everyone, I'm Christine, the host and creator of Flourish in the Foreign, a podcast and platform that elevates, celebrates, and affirms the voices and stories of Black women living and thriving abroad while exploring living abroad as a pathway to wellness. Hey everyone, today we are talking about healthcare abroad, and I am really excited to talk about this subject. If you caught my stories, I was telling y'all a little bit about kind of my inspiration this morning, and I also said, I don't know if I'm an expert, but I have some thoughts. I got some thoughts about healthcare abroad. So please let me know where you are tuning in from. If you are abroad, if you want to go abroad, let me know where you want to go. And of course, always put in any questions that you may have in the question box about healthcare abroad or about other things about living abroad, okay? And hello, Quinn. That's my BFF. Happy birthday. Love you, love you. Okay, so let's start. I have a whole list because I'm prepared for this chat. Okay, so let me start with a gripe that I have about the general conversation about living abroad. It is mostly people who've never lived abroad that talk like this, and it's no shade, but I just want to clear something up. Okay, healthcare in another country isn't just universally better. And I'm speaking particularly to Americans. Maybe from a different country, that's okay. But I always hear Americans are like, oh, it must be so much better, or nationalized healthcare, universal healthcare. And I really think that most Americans have no idea what any of these words mean, to be completely frank, which is kind of crazy because, when Obamacare was getting rolled out, we had so many think pieces and so many people had things to say and but I still don't actually think Americans really understand what national health care, universal health care is, who has access to it, or anything like that. I think it's also because the United States, the American healthcare system is really so unique in the world that we just we have a utopian kind of generalization of what national healthcare could be, or things like that, or it's just really generalized. Okay, so what I want to first say is that actually the American healthcare services that are provided, the practitioners are are very qualified. For the most part, it's very well-trained practitioners. Yes, they have blind spots, particularly in nutrition and holistic medicines and, listening to people of color. There's some blind spots there, and maybe over prescription of, pharmaceuticals. But that aside, they are quite well-trained practitioners, okay? So the healthcare that is typically on average provided in the United States is actually quite great, okay? I want to say that because what I think a lot of particularly Americans are frustrated with, and what they start to communicate, is that they obviously want something that is affordable, understandable, but what happens is there's this conversation of, okay, I want to go somewhere, I want to go somewhere where healthcare is good and affordable, just like that. And I'm just what do those words mean to you? What does it mean to you? Let's talk about it, okay? When we talk about healthcare, it is not a generalized conversation. It is about what you need as an individual, what your family needs. So if you have a child that has special needs, that's a whole different type of care, right? Not only health care, but maybe social support and things like that. You must be specific. This is something that I talk about a lot in Moving Abroad Contention course. And I think that's why people really enjoy the course. They end up having a whole binder of information ready to, continue their research or to go abroad. Because what happens is that you'll go on Facebook groups, you'll go on YouTube channels, and you get a lot of inspo, and you get really excited, and you are still it feels like you've taken a lot of information, but you actually haven't. And you know why? Because you haven't actually made decisions based upon your life. Yeah. There's a lot of and it feels weird because you're like, but I've watched this and I've watched that and I read this and da-da-da. But you haven't actually taken the time to say, what is it that I need? And actually write that down. I find that if you have done that, then you don't ask these generalized kind of questions about good health. Where should I go for good and affordable healthcare? Like, it's a very particular question. So, healthcare abroad needs to be, when you're thinking about it, needs to be bespoke to you. Like, you need to understand what is it that you're looking for, right? Like, I came to Spain when I was 30, I think. And I had no issues really. And so what I was looking for was really just obviously being able to go see a general practitioner, going to see a gynecologist. If you watch my stories, I told you guys I have really flat feet, so going to see the podiatrist, which I didn't do until actually this year, which I'm going to get into using your healthcare in a minute. Like, those are my things. If I was, wanting to have a child, then obviously not only would, maternal care, pregnancy care, like that would be part of it, and pediatric care, that would be part of it. And not just like, if you have it, like, what's the experience like? Like, what's going on, all right? That's what I first want to say. The second thing I want to say is, just because a country like Spain has nationalized health doesn't mean you as a foreigner will have access to it. Yeah. Like, a lot of people will say, it's so great you live in Spain. They won't just like let you die on the street because you don't have insurance. Okay, no, they won't. They won't do that. They won't. If you're a tourist or things like that, you should still have travel insurance if you're traveling. And as an expat or immigrant or whatever, if you don't have access to the national health care, which is particular actually in Spain, because certain comunidades have different rules, but generally it's about working, obviously, and paying into the system. Even if you pay, residency taxes, you may not actually have access to the healthcare system. So there's that. Just because you live in a country that has socialized medicine, that has national health care, doesn't mean that you'll have access to it. However, I've lived here for 5 years. I've always had private health care insurance, as is required. Like, you can't just be out here. Like, they don't even give you have to have the insurance before they even give you your visa. So, yeah. I've always had healthcare insurance. My healthcare premium per month has been like 36 euro, and then now I think it's 46 euro, but I've changed providers. And I probably will need to change providers again because I've lived in 3 different comunidades, and I think that depending on the provider, they have like more practitioners in their network, which I've discovered currently, like today. Okay, so there's that. You don't necessarily always get access to national health care. Private health care here in Spain, my experience has been excellent. Actually, it has been so good where it's a very strange thing. I've lived here for 5 years, and the experience has always been really top notch. -1, I'll tell you guys about that. It's always been really top notch, to the point where I'm always like, oh, I'm gonna have to pay for this. Like, I'm always like, is this part free? This part is included insurance? Like, how much is it gonna cost? And they're like, no, you have insurance. And I'm like, I don't gotta pay nothing? Like, no, leave the office. Or like today, or even like earlier this week, I I went to go see a podiatrist outside of my network, mostly because I just was tired. I have really flat feet, and I was like, I need to take care of this. And I went to go see a provider, and I actually just went just to like inquire, and I got a whole appointment, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess this is happening for real. And I didn't know how much it cost, so I go to the appointment, and I was like, oh shit, like this might actually be expensive because this is outside of my network. They don't take my insurance. Oh my goodness. I thought the appointment was just gonna be like a generalized talk, and they're gonna like tell me how much it costs, and I'll be like, okay, maybe I will do it. It was a whole like mock-up. It was a whole biometrics fancy thing. I don't know if you guys don't have flat feet, this is what happens. They put you on a treadmill, they put you on this runway, they put you on this spaceship thing, make you lay down and look at your legs and your hips and your feet. It's a whole thing. They take all these measurements and things like that. And after that, I thought it was like an informational meeting, but I got the whole workup, and I was like, oh my goodness. Like all this technology seems very fancy and very expensive, and I was like, oh shit, this is gonna be very expensive. And I was already telling myself, I was like, you gotta take care of yourself, it's fine, it's gonna be fine. And the doctor, who actually spoke English, which was nice, she was like, okay, this is what's going on. She's like, I really think you need to get some inserts, and then we gotta like measure them and see what what happens, and specifically for my hips, she's like, we really need to like get that under control. And I was like, okay. I was like, how much is this gonna be? And she was like, yeah. She's like, well, do you have insurance? I was like, yeah, but you don't take my insurance. She's like, okay, well, it's gonna be 90 euro. And I was like, what? I was like, what? 90 euro? She was like, yeah. And I was like, oh yeah, wrap that up. And I was like, can I get another one? I was like, okay, sure. So when I went to the receptionist to pay, I actually got my bill right here for y'all. All of those computerized, super technical, very fancy, it seemed very expensive to me. Like the fancy stuff. I've never seen any of this kind of stuff before. That whole part of the visit was 22 euro. And my brand new inserts are 90 euro. And she was like, do you want to pay it all? Or do you want to like split it up? I was like, no, you can pay that all. Like, here you go. Yeah. So, and actually, y'all, I had been looking at other podiatrists because I went to the running store and I was, talking to her, and she actually fit me for these amazing shoes, but she wouldn't let me get them because she was like, I have really large feet. This is TMI, but hey, we're friends. I'm only 5'5", and I have really large feet, and they're flat. And she was like, and she fit me for these amazing shoes. They felt like clouds, and she was like, they look crazy on you. I can't. She was like, no, I can't. I was like, no. I was like, they look that bad. I looked in the mirror. I was like, guys, it was like orthopedic granny abuela like shoes mixed with those like, those like city stompers, like those Kanye West kind of looking shoes that people like. It was like that. And I think it would have been cute had my foot been smaller. But it wasn't. She was like, nah, girl, you can't. I was like, I want the clouds. But I couldn't have them. And it was for the best. Because I was like, they feel so great. They can't possibly look this bad. They looked crazy. And I was like, well, you know what? Health before people's judgments. But I didn't get those. Anyway, she had given me a recommendation for a podiatrist. And I looked him up, and he was great. But actually, in some of the other private podiatrists around town, they don't take insurance and things like that. And their cost for all in would have been like 200 euro. I just went to like the state-of-the-art, brand new facility right next to my house, like 2 minutes from my house. And it was way cheaper. It was amazing. I was like, what is this? I was like trying to figure out like, why is it so cheap? I was like, are these all students? No. I don't know. And I don't care. But anyway, that is healthcare, right? I also want to say something because I think I mentioned this earlier. Using your healthcare. Still to this day, I don't feel like I use my healthcare enough. And a lot of other Americans that I know, friends that I know here in Spain, we have like the same issue, which is like, we are so programmed to, like, if you have a cough, be like, oh no, I'll work through it. I'm not going to the doctor, pay that, copay, and like, cause it's like, you're like, I pay insurance, but they're gonna also give me this whole freaking bill, and you're like, it's all in my mind, the power of my mind, the power of Robitussin, the power of, whatever, it's fine. And like, here in Spain, I will never forget, like, my very first year here, if those of you that know, I moved here to be on sabbatical, and I was teaching English. I was teaching English to children, 3 years old to 12. So you guys know, children have all the germs. In my delicate immune system, none of my friends had kids at the time. No, one of my friends had kids, but like, it was very small. Like, my immune system wasn't built up. And so of course I got sick. And I was just like, oh gosh, I felt like, ugh. And I remember one of the supervising teachers was like, why don't you go to the doctor? I was like, no, I'm fine. And he was like, go to the doctor. Like, you can get a doctor's note. You don't gotta come to work. Like, you could, like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, I just wanna, he was just like, go to the doctor, you weird person. And that's the thing, like, there's this weird programming of not actually utilizing this service because, I don't know, we think it's gonna be either a bad experience or it's gonna take really long, which it could, or I don't know, or it's gonna be really expensive is the big thing. When you're just like, I got this cough, give me some, I don't know, give me some lemon, some honey, give me some whiskey, a hot toddy? Yeah, give me a hot toddy. Give me a hot toddy, I'll be all right. And they're like, no, just go to the doctor. So I would say it's still actually pretty hard for me. And it's not hard, it's just like, it doesn't come in my mind to regularly go to the doctor. And that seems really crazy. Like, I have to write it down on my list. That's why, like, today or this week, I was like, you have flat feet, girl. Your feet hurt generally all the time, but I've had them forever. I walked the Camino de Santiago, but I'm like, no, we're taking care of ourselves. We're gonna go investigate. I investigated and got a whole little workup done and got some new inserts that feel really nice. Feels great. It feels a little bit weird, but it feels good. So there's that, using your healthcare. And I feel like I still could use it more. Yeah, like, I went to the gynecologist, and it's so funny. I've had 3 different gynecologists in Spain. Y'all want a story time? Let me tell you some stories. Let me tell you some stories of my experiences with some gynecologists. First gynecologist I had in Spain, I was living in La Rioja, and I had like Cadillac insurance, like Cadillac. And I was, as you guys know, I was auxiliar de conversación. They don't do that anymore. They really did the auxiliars really dirty. But at the time in La Rioja, we had like Cadillac platinum insurance. Other comunidades had like catastrophic. And we were like, no, we don't know that life. We don't know her. We can go wherever we want. I was living in the city center in the old town. And I was like, okay, I need to get my annual checkup, gynecologist checkup. And I just was like, who's the closest to me? And I just was like, okay, I went and booked in an appointment. I go to the office, and I'm in there, and there's all these like couples in there, which I was like, that's interesting. Like, I was like, I've never been to a gynecologist's office where it's like all these couples. Then there's like all these baby pictures. Then there's like all these like newspaper clippings and awards. And then there's a whole wall of just people's babies. And I was like, what? Y'all, I had booked an appointment with like one of the leading fertility doctors in Spain. And she's a gynecologist. And she's a fertility doctor. And I was like, yo, like, I just want an annual checkup. Like, that's it. And they're like, yeah, we do that too. And I was like, oh, okay. Because because this is not what I was thinking. So I go in, and she was extremely professional. She didn't speak any English whatsoever, so I had just moved to Spain, right? Well, not just. I think it was like January. I moved to Spain in August. It was January of the next year. And I was like, all right, let's do this, right? How about this? The doctor was fine. She was just like, we're miming. And then I was like, okay, yeah, we got it. Y'all, I'm in the stirrups, right? Just it's all out there. I'm in the stirrups. Scoot your booty down. I'm in the stirrups, and the nurse practitioner is like, oh, where are you from? And I was like, oh, I'm from Atlanta. She's like, oh, you speak English. You're an English teacher. I was like, oh, yeah. Y'all, she proceeds, while splayed. I'm still in the stirrups. Everything is, the glory is open, okay? And she's like, oh, my son really needs an English teacher. Can you possibly do you have availability? And I was like, no. And she's like, oh, but you know someone? And I'm like, what are you gonna say, right? What are you gonna say to someone? You're in the most vulnerable position. She was like, just think about it. She goes back into the office. She writes down her name and her number on a sticky. She sticks it on my dressing gown while I'm in the stirrups, spread out. That had nothing to do with healthcare, but that was crazy. I was just like, she wasn't mean. She was just like, oh yeah, I was gonna put it. She was like, I'll put it on you. No, I'll just put it on you. Yeah, there you go. Let me know if you know anyone. I was like, girl. And I don't, for her, this is every day. This is not, this is every day. This is whatever. For me, I was like, what am I gonna say no? What am I gonna do? I'm gonna smile and nod, and hopefully you'll leave me alone. We can stop this. I can close my legs. I can put on some underwear. I can leave. Yo, that was crazy. Who was next? I had a German gynecologist in Barcelona. She was really nice, in a German way. Y'all know what that means? Germans are, Americans, we have a reputation of being fake. So we're like, yeah. And a lot of Europeans are just like, that's so fake. Da, da, da. Germans, I feel are very not, almost opposites of Americans in that way. They're just like, no, I'm really happy. I'm really enjoying you. Very, and they also mean, they say what they mean. So I went to go see her. She came very highly recommended, and it was lovely. It was lovely. She was asking me, all the standard questions and things like that. At the time, I was getting an IUD taken out, and she was like, okay, I just want to let you know, da-da-da, and different type of birth control, and da-da-da, and I'll write you a prescription. Yo, the whole thing went well. But she took out the IUD. She's like, do you want to keep it? Do I want to keep it? She's like, she had no. Isn't that a biohazard or something? She's like, okay, you know what? No. Okay, I'll put it. I'm like, okay, thank you. The next gynecologist I had was the one I was like, it wasn't a bad experience, but she was Spanish Catalan, and at this, I had switched providers, and in Barcelona, there's this, I forget even what it's called, there's this huge medical complex up in the hills, and it looks like a palace. Actually, someone super famous just died there. Sorry. It was like a leader of a country or an ex-leader of a country just died there. I can't remember. But anyway, I was like, oh yeah, I used to go there. It's this huge medical complex, private healthcare complex. You can do anything anything you need, you can get done in this complex. It's huge, and it looks like a palace. Like, I remember I got dropped off by like a Uber Cabify, and they're like, "What is this?" I was like, "I'm going to a doctor's appointment, sir. Just drop me off here." Anyway, I was over there, and I went to see the gynecologist. Another one that was really highly recommended, but she did give me a little bit of sass because I was again in the stirrups. I think that's when people try to get you because you're vulnerable, so you can't. You know what I mean? What are you gonna do? Nothing. But she was basically admonishing me because at the time I'd been in Spain for like 3 years, and she was just like, "You should really be fluent by now." You know what I mean? She's like, "I'll speak to you in English, but you should really be fluent." And I was like, why? Like, you had all this time before I was splayed out to like say this to me, but you waited until I was in stirrups. Interesting. So I was like, it wasn't a bad experience, but I was like, I'm not going back to you. And then my most recent experience was with another, I think she's German, here in Valencia. Yeah, it was actually a really good experience. I had an issue with my insurance. Like, my insurance wasn't going through, and I was like, oh, so frustrated. I was like the last patient of the day, so I was feeling like really like, oh, I'll just pay for it out of pocket. I don't care. I'll just pay for it. And she was like, no, you have insurance. She was like, just call them tomorrow. And, if it's not resolved by Thursday, then okay. And I was just like, oh, how much is it, just so I know? And she was just like, it's fine, okay. And I was so upset, and I was just like, I don't know, I had this like I was bothering everyone. I was so upset, y'all, that I was leaving the building. I like locked myself in, I don't even know how to explain it. It's a building with like this mini courtyard. So it has a door, and then it has a door to the courtyard. Because it was like night at the time, the door to the courtyard that opens up to the street was closed. What I didn't know is that inside the building, there was the exit button for the courtyard door. So I leave, the door closed behind me. I go to the gate, it's locked. Okay? So I'm already like really upset because I was like, why is my insurance working? And I'm like banging on the gate. And then a passerby was like, and let me out. And I was just like, I don't know if I can go to that gynecologist again, but I probably will. Anyway, those are some of my experiences with healthcare in Spain. I will say this. What else am I gonna say? What does it mean? Did I say all those things? Yes. I will say this, that you should definitely understand not only what is it that you need, but you need to understand your capability of communicating what you need, right? So seeking out professionals that speak your language, if that's gonna be an issue for you, because trying to explain, for me, like this week, exactly the very parts of my toes and foot that hurt excruciatingly, which is not all of it. In Spanish, actually was quite difficult. I was like, what's the word for this part of the foot? Like, I know foot, I know toes, I know arch, I know a lot of the parts of the body, but not like these nuanced things. That's something that I think you should definitely think about. All right, I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna read some of these comments. If you have any questions about healthcare abroad, because I am gonna talk to you guys about some of the guests that have been on the show and their experiences, because I do have a list of that. So if you have any questions, put them in the question box. We'll get to them, but let's do some of these comments first. What are y'all saying? Okay, y'all saying, Y'all laughing at me, Oh, hey, Janeffa, how are you? Yeah, having flat feet, y'all, it causes so many other issues, from ankles to knees to hips to back pain. And I'm a very active person, so I've just been very used to going through the pain, and people are like, you're not supposed to do that. And I'm like, So that's part of me living a life well lived, is actually taking care of myself more. listening to my body. So when the doctor says, when does it hurt? I'd be like, all the time. But when does it hurt more? And she's like, okay. She's like, I want to see you in 2 weeks. Okay. So I put her in 2 weeks. She's like, no, girl. No, are you kidding me? Probably, oh, you're talking about... I said a lot of crazy stuff, so you guys are probably laughing at it. Yes, all of these things are true. I didn't have to make up anything. Okay, so Janelle, your mom kept her IUD and showed me. Quick, for your scrapbook, I guess I could have put in a scrapbook. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Is there a large German population in Spain? Yes, there is, actually. Yeah, there's a large population in Spain. A lot in the I'm trying to say it in Spanish, but then trying to say it in English. In the Balearic Islands, there's actually a whole German community. A lot of Germans own summer houses there. Actually, the German Olympic team, maybe it's their track team, has a compound in Menorca or Mallorca. Yeah, the Germans are here. There are even, and it's usually the Costa Brava, maybe even the Costa Dorado. There are little clumps of Northern Europeans. There is is it Norwegian or Swedish? There's a Swedish kind of pueblo or area. There's definitely Germans, and there's a lot of Brits. Benidorm, Alicante. Yeah. What country are you in? I live in Spain. Yep. I live in Spain. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, again, put them in the comment box. Okay, I want to talk about some other experiences with healthcare abroad. Okay, let's talk about pregnancy abroad, something I've never experienced, but has been such an interesting topic. It's something that I really like talking to my guests that do have children abroad, because I think, especially as my audience and the show is Black women, a Black maternal death rate, or is that the right word? Yeah, death rate in the United States is high and strangely high for a developed first world country. And so obviously looking into their experiences abroad was really important to me, really interesting. One of my very first guests, actually my second guest, the second episode, was with Deanna, and her family were living in Hong Kong. If you have not listened to that episode, you should. It's a very good episode. Obviously biased. But it was really interesting because Deanna is from Atlanta, as I am, and she told me about her first pregnancy and her first delivery in Atlanta, which she had at Northside Hospital, if you guys are aware or familiar. And I'm gonna get it wrong because I don't remember, but I do believe the cost of her first child was $7,000 to $12,000, and she had insurance. Okay, all the details of if it was a vaginal birth or a cesarean are in the episode. I don't actually recall, but that was the cost. Okay, her husband, her first daughter, moved to Hong Kong and have the second daughter. They go through the public healthcare system, and this was, I don't think she had a private room. They kind of just had a room with all of these laboring mothers with curtains and things like that. I believe that her doctor spoke English, and all of her prenatal things were taken care of in the experience as well. She gives birth to her baby. They give her a little box of baby prizes. I don't know, a box of baby stuff, to help. And she pays her bill on her Metro card. In some countries, you can use your Metro card to not only pay to go into the Metro, but to go to pay things, right? It's like a debit card, but also it's a Metro card. That bill, I believe, was 44 USD, the equivalent of 44 USD to deliver a child. You got the baby, and you got some swag. The baby's prize enough, but you got some swag. 44 USD. Okay? Yes. Healthcare. Like, healthcare. This is why it's important to be very specific about what you're looking for and things like that. Another story about giving birth abroad was with Star in Budapest, right? So we're in Asia, moved to Europe. In Budapest and Hungary. And this was her first child. And her husband is Hungarian. They were living in California. They decided to move to Hungary. So it was their first child. All of the very scary things that I would assume you have when you have your first child. So she decided to go private all the way. She wanted to, she doesn't speak Hungarian. She was like, excuse me, I want to know what's happening all the time, things like that. What she did not know is that to have everything in English, to have like a provider that speaks English, it is like twice or triple the cost. And she was like, had I known that, I would have had this Hungarian husband of mine translate. I agree, put him to work for sure. So all in, for her first child, it ended up being around 10,000 euros. Private healthcare insurance, going private all the way, having English practitioners and things like that, okay? So this is also when people are like, everything outside the US is cheaper and better, and I'm like, no, let's not generalize. Let's do our research. Let's figure out what is it that we need. Now, what I will say, when I was speaking with Star, she did say it was really hard to get like a lot of, I guess, solid anecdotal information, right? You join the mommy clubs, Facebook groups, things like that, the WhatsApp groups, and there were just so many different experiences that she was just like, you know what, I don't want to risk it, or she just didn't feel comfortable, because there was a lot of women who were like, no girl, I used, public health care, I had this baby, it was fine. She's like, people were like, I didn't understand anything they said, but I got this baby, it worked. And she was just like, no, I need to know everything that's going on. Understandable. But, she had access to the anecdotal information, but it wasn't enough to really make her feel confident and kind of going down a different route. So that's something to be mindful of, because I think that's also something that's really applicable. I think that's part of the whole pregnancy and motherhood experience, right? You want other people's opinions, not only for your maternal care, but like pediatric care. And so if you can't get a clear option or clear answer, you're gonna go with like whatever you think is like the best, just to be safe. And it could be the best, or it could just be the most expensive, right? Also, let us. Yes, Janetta, they were trying to hire me with my legs spread open. Yeah, yes, Janelle, $44. Run that episode back. That was a good episode. Because also in that episode, you talk about raising children, right? And the cost of raising children and how different you can raise children abroad. This is also a conversation that I'm really interested in, even though I don't have no kids. I'm really fascinated in it because in Hong Kong, they don't have daycare centers. They don't got them, right? So what do you do with your kid? Well, you have a live-in nanny. That's what you do. You make sure your apartment has another room and you have a live-in nanny. I forget the word that Deanna used. It was a very particular word. Helper, I don't know if it was helper, something. But you have a live-in nanny, right? Because her husband worked, she worked, and that's just what it was. And the cost was affordable for them. And that was like, think about that kind of experience. Like, you come from Atlanta, if you guys know Atlanta, that kind of lifestyle, and you move somewhere where you can have a live-in nanny. And I don't think they aspired to have that. They were like really uncomfortable with it at first, but they were like, actually, this is great. Actually, this works really well for everything that we need to do, not only as working professionals, but also as a family. I think also something to think about when you're talking about raising children abroad, Black children abroad, is community, hair care. I talked about hair care last week, but I don't think I mentioned, maybe I did mention it. Also in Deanna's episode, she talked about having, a hair braider just come to the house and braid up everybody's hair. And it was really affordable. And the thing about Hong Kong is like it's super expensive, but like this is all affordable. That's why it's so important to be specific about, these generalized notions of like, I just want to go somewhere cheap, or where the dollar goes far, or like, what is it that you actually want? Because it may not be whatever you think it's going to be. It may not be Costa Rica or wherever, whatever. Like, be specific about what you actually need, what your family actually needs in this moment, what you'll need in the future, and allow that to dictate where you go. If you're trying to go abroad and stay abroad and be sustainable and be happy abroad, because again, just because you move abroad doesn't mean you're happy. I say it all the time. It's not about moving abroad. It's not about being abroad. It's about thriving. It takes that kind of honesty with yourself, and you definitely want to be honest and be very specific. Be very specific about it. Okay, another thing about raising children abroad, which I think was really fascinating, is with the episode with Jessie of Etta V. I really like Jessie so much. She is from Indiana. She met her husband in San Francisco when she was working as a creative director. And she's an artist. She's a fine artist. And she has this massively successful business called Etta V. She licenses a lot of her artwork. She gets commissioned for her artwork. Just amazing. And in that episode, she actually talks about how she created that business. A very successful business. How she did it and what was that kind of impetus. And also she talks about French work culture, which it ain't, what's that show called? Emily in Paris. I don't watch it. It ain't whatever that's happening. It's not that. Okay. But also, she actually has 2 kids now, but I think when we were recording, I think she only had 1. Maybe she was pregnant with the second one. But she talked about not only her pregnancy journey in France with her first child, but also raising her child, and raising her child still with a Black American identity. And that was really important for her to instill and to continuously instill in both of her daughters now. And how she did that. One, obviously visits with the grandparents, sending them, she was like, these kids are going, I think maybe her family's also from Tennessee. I think she's like, they're going back to Tennessee every summer, things like that. But also, really showcasing her culture every single day. Obviously, they speak French. They also speak English. Another thing that she mentioned about raising her daughter was that in France, these kids are living well, in my opinion, because she described in the episode her kids' menu for lunch. And they sent it, in the little backpack, and you see. And, if you guys remember when we went to school, I'll say when I went to school, we did have like that little menu, the calendar menu, but it was like pizza, baked potato, tacos, like it was that kind of stuff. They are, one, really embarking in the French gastronomic experience. Period. They are having capers. And her daughter at the time was like 3 or 4. Like they are having a full meal, and they're getting exposed to many different flavors. They don't think that kids are too young to have that. And they're also being taught kind of like the eating social norms, like the French kind of way of eating and socializing, things like that. Not just like, napkins, things like that, but just like that part of the culture gets taught at a very young age. So that's important. Like at school, they get taught like, the bijou, like who do you kiss? How do you kiss? All these different types of things are taught in school. So it is very interesting. You would think, or at least I would think, there are kids around the world all kids around the world are remarkably similar, like little and just full of energy. But really, how that culture starts molding them at a young age is so fascinating. I think you guys have probably seen on Netflix, the Japanese children that walk to school or go to convenience stores. I've been heard about that, like walking to school by themselves, yes, or walking to school with like a line of children, and if they don't conform, if they're not on time or things like that, they'll get like kicked out of the walking to school train. And these are little kids, not like 10, like little kids. So raising children abroad is so much more than just like, they may have an accent. Like, it's completely different. Another example is episode, let's say 9, with Barbara in Jordan. Barbara has 2 grown children, but she has 2 younger children that went with her and her husband to Jordan. And she talks about one, kind of the difficulty, because her sons were, I think, maybe around 10 or 12. So they weren't little, right? So the kind of difficulty to kind of assimilate, kind of get settled, particularly because one of her sons went to a strictly Arabic school and he didn't speak Arabic. But they worked on it, the teachers worked on it, and her kids are fluent in Arabic, so fluent that when they went to a McDonald's and, just having some McFries, there were some Jordanian ladies, who were talking some cash money-ish about them being foreign, not thinking that they spoke Arabic. And her son, stopped and spoke to them in Arabic and said, "Please stop, aunties. Why are you speaking like these ugly words to us? It is haram." In Arabic. Come on. That's part of the episode. And she also talks about just how they've really changed and have become just amazing young men, obviously. But that's part of it. That is part of that. It's also I would say that's also part of healthcare, right? Because it's about kind of the holistic kind of being of a child, I would say. But I'm not a parent. I'm not. Yes, I saw a France 24 video on that. I was shocked. I stay watching France 24, and I live in Spain. I don't know. I like their reporting on European news better. But I watch actually a wide variety of European news, just because you do get like a different propaganda lens, we'll say. Especially, I started watching it when I was living in Catalonia, because they have like Catalan news that is just propaganda, like pro-independence propaganda. I was like, I need somebody else to tell me some things. But yeah, France 24. And France 24 comes, if you guys are thinking about moving to Europe, it comes in like a wide variety of languages. So it's English, French, Spanish, I think Arabic, maybe something else. Yeah, it's really good. Really, really good. And any other healthcare? There was another healthcare one. The most recent episode of the freaking podcast, y'all. Kentia in Dominican Republic. Her and her husband hadn't even been in the Dominican Republic for 1 week when he got into a horrible motorcycle accident, had to be moved to Miami, was in Miami for recovery. I think he had over 14 surgeries, had to learn how to walk again for a whole year. Then went back to the Dominican Republic, and then went to Taiwan. I bring that up because in that episode, she particularly talks about, the deficiencies of the Dominican Republic's healthcare system. And you need to be aware of that, right? Nobody plans on having, a crazy accident where it was touch and go as to whether her husband's leg or like half the leg was going to get amputated or something like that. Had they stayed in the Dominican Republic, that would have been the option. Whereas when they went to Miami, they could do like this innovative muscle surgery. That's something to think about. So when you talk about healthcare, there's so many different things to consider, right? You really got to think about that. Everything is, fine and dandy when you're healthy. But what if things go wrong? Because that's the nature of life. Things can go wrong, right? So that's important to think about. And it's actually an excellent episode to reinforce the need for health insurance. Now, at the very beginning of this talk, I already told y'all that if you have a visa somewhere, and I'm going to make a blanket statement. It may not be true. But if you get a visa, you go through the embassy, you go through the consulate and get a visa, 9 times out of 10, you have to show that you have insurance to go into that country, right? You typically do. What happens though, what I keep on seeing in Facebook groups that I keep on telling myself I'm going to leave, I'm just going to leave it, I'm going to leave them, is that, people are thinking about doing visa runs in countries. And I just have to be honest with you. I think the days of visa runs, as you maybe have been reading about them in blogs or seen them on YouTube videos, are numbered around the world. I firmly believe it. I think they're numbered. I think the pandemic changed everything. And I think these kind of visa runs that people think they can do, I don't think they're gonna be here in maybe 5-10 years. I really don't. And I think I've already seen people get hemmed up at borders, being like, I'm gonna do a visa run, and people just like, no, you're not coming back in. And they can do that. Like, they don't have to have a reason to not let you into the country. I also don't think Americans recognize that either. I mean, like, they don't gotta let you in the country. You're like, yeah, but all my stuff and my whole family's there. And they'd be like, we do not care. And they'll put a black X in your passport or something and you will not get in. So I say that to say is like, what I also hear about these visa runs is people not getting proper health care. Like, it's just vibes. And I'm like, a good example is about Mexico. One, Mexico used to have this kind of tourist visa scheme where you could be allowed entry for, I think, even up to 180 days. Just upon entry, you could be like, yeah, I want 180 days. And they'd be like, no, we're not doing that anymore. No. All right. So a bunch of Americans getting denied entry into Mexico. It's just, you're right. The joke's tried itself. The joke's tried itself. Also, people be like, oh, Mexico is so cheap. Like, healthcare can be affordable in other countries, and I'm not going to deny that. But what COVID has showed us is that, yeah, you can pay out of pocket, sure. But in Mexico, particularly, when COVID, I guess, is still going on, but right when the beginning, when we're all in the throes of what is this, a lot of countries changed their schemes, and they're like, oh, you're not in the national healthcare system? We don't know what this is. It's taking a lot more time, energy, a lot more PPE, a lot of things going on. That costs money. You don't pay into our system, because you don't. You don't. Even though people will be like, well, I buy this and that. You don't pay into their healthcare system. What part of that do you not understand? So then they started to be like, you need to pay up front. And people were like, oh, okay. And there was like 5,000. And they're like, oh, pesos. They're like dollars, USD. And so you have people who took their poor financial health and habits abroad and found out that they were going to be stuck, or they wouldn't be able to have access to certain things. That's an IG in and of itself, actually. I'm going to do this so much. I might have to bring somebody else on, because that one's a sermon. That's a sermon. Like, going abroad can help you get financially well. It can, but it's not magic fairy dust, and it takes work and it takes intention. That's another conversation. But anyway, back to healthcare. Yeah, healthcare may be affordable and cheap, but you may not have access to it. Again, I think it's really, really important to understand that. No, other countries may not let you just die on the street because they have hearts and you're human, as opposed to American healthcare system. But that doesn't mean that you should just go around the world taking advantage of other people's healthcare systems, their national healthcare system that everybody else pays into, and you're just like, vibes. You need to go ahead and get healthcare insurance. Because also, if you die, let's just be real about it. How are you gonna get home? GoFundMe? I'm very sad to see those. I don't like them. It's something to think about. In Spain, you have to have repatriation insurance. Part of your healthcare has to cover and include repatriation of your remains. That is what it is. They're like, no, we're not trying to have, you out. I don't even know. We're not trying to do that, okay? So healthcare is so much more. And I want us all to win, and I want us all to be well. But I need everyone to actually think critically, because I see a lot of horrible advice getting thrown out on the internet. And a lot of people are like, well, I did this, and I saw so-and-so, they've been doing this, they've been living like this, and da-da-da-da for 20 years, and da-da. That's them, that's not you. Let's keep it real. That's them, that's not you. And no. And also, let's also be frank. Not everybody that has a platform is telling y'all the truth. Let me say that again. Not everybody that has a platform is telling you the truth about their whole entire experience. They'd be like, oh, da, da, da. And you do not know their life. You do not know how they went abroad. You don't know how they stayed abroad. You don't know a lot of things. A lot of people, y'all get, and they don't be telling you the truth. They don't be telling you the whole truth of the situation. So you think, well, so-and-so did this. So da-da-da. I mean, I get it. It's like people just be like, well, what visa do you have? And I'm like, the visa I have has nothing to do with you. Because you can't, you know what I'm saying? Like, it has nothing to do with you. I'm not going to sell you guys a dream or anything like that, but like, let's use discernment. And that's the only thing I think is kind of crazy about, I'm not going to say that. The thing is that there's a lot of content creators, like people are going abroad and they're becoming content creators. Hey, get to the bag, sure. Okay. But, one, you don't have to become a content creator just because you move abroad. That's another conversation. You know, there's a lot of, I got a lot of friends, and you'd be like, they went abroad? They don't have any TikTok? No, they don't. I'm not really being shady, because everybody that I like and I know out in these, content creator living abroad streets are reputable, because I would not mess with them if they weren't. Like, the people I follow, the people I've collaborated with, they are reputable, because that's just how I move. And there's people I haven't collaborated with because they don't be moving the way that I move. But back to the point, not everybody who goes abroad, one, should be giving you advice, let alone charging you for it. Goodness. And just whatever they do doesn't mean that you want to do it too. Okay? That goes to healthcare. That goes to a lot of other things. Let me just say this. It's not shady if it's true. Okay. For example, in, December 2020, January 2021, it was a lot of stuff going on in the world this time. I can't remember what it was. Y'all remember there was a story about these two black women who were in Bali, and there was like this whole kerfuffle because they were getting deported. Why were they getting deported? They were getting deported because they had visited Bali. They hadn't moved to Bali. They had visited Bali, got stuck there during COVID, so everybody's locked down, and decided to stay. They did not have proper visa documents and things like that. And look, if y'all never been to Bali, I thought Bali was like all hype. I actually went to Bali November 2019. I got there, I was like, oh, I see why people don't want to leave. I was like, I see it. I go to places like you guys go to places that people hype up and you're like, all right, it's cute, but and all that. No, Bali's that girl. I would say Bali's that girl. I was like, oh, I see why people live here. Yeah. Anyway, so these women, they got stuck in Bali during the pandemic and decided to obviously showcase their lifestyle. Bali is beautiful. IG it. Put it up for the gram. I have no problem with that. I will say that living and visiting a place is different than, those are different things. Living and visiting is different, and you don't need to live your life for the gram in general, let alone live abroad for the gram. Like, I wouldn't be like, oh, I want to live here, but I don't know, is this gonna be Instagrammable? Like, girl, if you don't go and do what's best for you, for who? Anyway, stay on. Okay, so while they were there, they started a business, coaching people, advising people how to move to Bali. They wrote an ebook. I'm a business strategist, right? Y'all know this, okay? So I'm gonna be shady about this part. I am. So they wrote an ebook about it, and everything in the ebook was about all these loopholes to staying in Bali. So you're writing a book. It's a cheat code, okay? That's an ethics kind of thing, okay? I'm telling people like, oh, it's so easy to move here and da-da-da. They were also, I guess are they in a relationship? I don't know if they were in a relationship together or if they were just queer women individually. I'm not sure. So their whole presence and brand was like this queer paradise where you can be yourself, Black queer paradise, right? If you listen to my episode with Nubia and Francis, I talked to them explicitly about being Black queer women abroad, traveling. So they're both kind of like digital nomads, what people need to look for and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, Indonesia is queer friendly? Because when I was in Indonesia, that's a Muslim country. Hardcore. I was like, really? That's interesting. Bali having its own history and having it's not a Muslim island within the country of Indonesia. I was like, oh, okay, interesting. So they put out this kind of platform, like, this is what it is, and they start marketing. You gotta market your stuff. And what happens is that the Balinese Twitter gets a hold of this, and they're like, wait, what are you guys doing? What are you doing? Because people are asking them on Twitter, like, oh, how do you guys, like, you guys have to pay taxes? And they're like, no, girl, like, buy our book and we'll tell you how to do it. And the Balinese Twitter were like, you definitely do gotta pay taxes. You're not supposed to have a business, and just goes off. As they should, because they are locals. Okay, so like, that's just what it is. That's just what it is. And so it got a lot of traction in all types of media. The authorities were alerted to these illegal migrants in Bali, and they got deported. And they said it was because they're queer and things like that. Look, as hard as that might be to hear, that could be true, but also it's a Muslim country, and yeah, I mean, you get deported from UAE for definitely less. Definitely less. So there's that. You have to follow rules. But secondly, the Balinese and the Indonesian government were like, that's not the reason. The reason is that y'all making this money, not paying taxes, and being flagrant about it and trying to tell other people to come over here and do stuff. And I think the part of the ebook was helping people to come in during, because I think it was still during 2021, so it was like trying to still come with like the COVID restrictions. And they were like, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Why am I bringing that up? I'm bringing that up because people will sell you wrong information, intentionally or not intentionally. But y'all know the road to hell is paved in good intentions. Okay, and there's this whole argument about it. I remember I was in some kind of discussion, and some people are like, people don't want to see black women happy and thriving and liberated. And I was like, they are not the only black women abroad. They're not the only black women living and thriving in Bali and been living in Bali for years legally. That's another, anyway, this is about healthcare. I bring that up though, is that, look, people are gonna tell you lots of crazy things. Take whatever I say with a grain of salt. How about that? You can be like, who are you? Who am I? Is right. Be suspicious. Don't be just taking people's words for stuff, because goodness, right? Like, y'all wanna be deported? I don't wanna be deported. I'll be like, no, I'm not doing that. Oh, it's so easy to do that. Let's just also say this. Moving abroad is a hassle. Just come to grips with it. Moving abroad is a hassle. You know when it's not a hassle? When you have lots of money to pay someone else to do all your things for you. Your immigration attorney, a relocation service, even that is still a hassle. Even if you have somebody to come to your house to pack up all your things, it's a corporate move like Juanita had in her episode. They come and they pack up all your stuff. They got it wrong in her episode. Like, they sent everything that was supposed to be in the storage unit to Taiwan and then broke it, and all the things that was supposed to be moved to Taiwan in the storage unit. So it's something. But like, just come to grips that moving abroad is a hassle. And don't try to cut corners because you want it to be sustainable for you. And also, how about this? What works for other people may not work for you. Some people want to live on the beach in a hammock, and you may not want to. Okay? So all of their lifestyle and all their choices are in alignment with living in a hammock on the beach. Do you want to live in a hammock on the beach? I don't, but that's because I always fall out of every hammock that I've ever been in my life. So that's just not ever going to be for me. Okay, let's do it. Also, again, please put in your questions. In the comments or in the question box. Okay, here we go. Yes, Janefa, those kids, check them. That's like one of my favorite sound bites too. Yeah, I like that. From Barbara and Jordan. Janelle says, yes, I had to purchase health insurance for 1 year. It was $1,600 because I'm going to a language school. If I was going to university, then I wouldn't need it and I'd be covered under the school. Look, that's just what it is. But $1,600, even over 12 months, and the type of things that you can get, and there's no co-pays and things like that, like, it's worth it. If you're gonna go abroad, pay your health insurance, use your health insurance. Don't be like me, where I'm like, and people have to be like, go to the doctor. Go to the doctor. Yes, health insurance. Okay, how do you find reputable health care? It depends on which country. So let me know which country you're referring to. But this is how I would find reputable health care. One, I would look at the embassy, the US embassy for a particular city, right? So in Barcelona, there's a consulate. I go to the consulate website. They have a lot of recommendations for things. Do that. There's also an American Society in Barcelona. I would scan and search for that, because the thing about that's another one. The thing about like American societies or Americans in a different country, like Americans in blank country, you're gonna get a lot of complaining where you're just like, don't y'all know you're not in America? Well, what's wrong with y'all? But you will get like reviews of products, right? Like reviews of healthcare and things like that. They're gonna complain about a lot of things. But like, that's actually a really good place to go. You'll get like a whole, in my opinion, you'll get like a whole run up of like all the options in your city. And they'll be like, from the Cadillac, people like, well, not everybody has a corporate move. And like, it gets so catty. I'd be like, how y'all have so much energy to be so shady to strangers on the internet? I don't know. Consistently. Because it's always like the same actors. Anyway, that's what I would do. I'll go into the American Society of X country or brothers and sisters in X place and ask them. That's what I would do. How would I double check that? I would then do my own research about coverage, right? I would do my own research about coverage, in particular, like networks and things like that. That's what I did. When I moved to Barcelona, I changed providers, and I asked around. And in Barcelona, because it's a big city, I had a lot of coverage. Like a lot of them were like kind of similar coverage. So I kind of then went on to like customer service experience. Like, are they gonna like fix things? What are the options? Do they have things in English? And yeah, I speak Spanish, but like for me, when it comes to healthcare, like I don't want to be in a position where I'm like trying to, like earlier this week, describe very nuanced things, and I'm like, I don't even know the term of my foot that this refers to. It's not really the foot, it's the muscle inside, and I don't even know. It's not like pain, it's not sharp, it's like this, right? So having options to speak English, so I can be like, girl, this is what's happening. And then we can, go back and forth in Spanglish. Like having that kind of option, having good customer service, especially in this country, because they'd be like, customer service, we don't know her. Just like, okay. I'm like, oh, I just give you money. That's all this is? Okay. So that's how I determined which service, which healthcare provider I wanted. Now that I moved to Valencia, I'm kind of doing on the go research. Like this clinic that I went to, they don't take my insurance, but they do take a particular type of insurance. So I'm like, I need to look into that insurance, see what their coverage is. Maybe that's like the main girl in town in Valencia. And I'm like, okay, well, if it's comparable and they have like the customer service, they have English, they have, the premiums are similar, then I might switch to her, to this, other healthcare provider. Because then I'd be like, oh, then I can go see my podiatrist. And they have actually all these other doctors in that facility. I was like, oh, okay, that's not a thing. I could do that. So that's how I would do it. There's a lot of reviews online, and there's major players in the country. Now, if you're talking about expat insurance, like that's wide reaching, like Cigna, I think even, what is it, HSBC, I don't know, has banking, but I think they also have like a arm of healthcare and things like that. That I think I don't have particular experience with at all. I just use travel insurance when I go abroad, and I actually have a new thing that I'm going to use, but I haven't fully reviewed it yet. So when I know it's good, then I'll tell y'all about that, but I don't know if it's good, so I don't want to tell y'all because I haven't used it yet. That's how you would find reputable healthcare. That's how I would do it. A healthcare provider. But before that, you need to understand what your healthcare needs are explicitly. I tell everybody, write it down with pen and paper. Like go from your head to your toes, right? Like, you have a scalp condition, write it down. You need to see a therapist, write it down. See what can be covered. In my healthcare, I think in all of my healthcare plans, I've always had access to see a therapist. However, all the therapists that have been within my network, none of them have been native English speakers. And for me, I've always looked for a woman of color, and that wasn't available either. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna go out of network for my mental wellness. And that's fine for me. It's worth it. It's still per session. I think I pay my sessions with my therapist are €60 an hour a session, which I think is excellent, personally. It's within my budget. So, what was I saying, Janelle? Yes, doing it for the gram. I'm gonna do an IG about it. I know. Everyone is a content creator. Everybody got a podcast. I'm not gonna go there. Don't go there, Christine. I got thoughts though. One, being a content creator, that's no shade to being a content creator. It's hard work. That's why my content is a podcast and not come around with me through Spain, which people have asked me to do. And I'm like, one, I'm an introvert. Two, I'm a private person. I'm always gonna be a private person. I'm always like, why do you want to know where I live? Why do you want to know where I go? I don't know. I'm like, no. But also, it's not just, it's a lot of work. And I don't think people recognize how much work it is to shoot any content and to edit it and to make it like palatable to you as the audience, right? Like I actually shot some content this morning because I was like, let me show them about going to a Spanish doctor. And I'm shooting it and I'm like, oh my God, I gotta edit this. Maybe I'll do it this weekend, maybe, right? But like, you can't just like throw it out there because y'all want something nice. That's what y'all don't recognize. Like, y'all want something nice. I could throw up like raw audio of the podcast. Y'all be like, what is this? What is this? Not everybody's a content creator. Okay? That's all I'm gonna. And not everybody should be. And it's not like easy money. There's money to be had and you can be sustainable, and that's a whole nother conversation. I've actually talked to people about how to, I've done a live with Yasmin, and I think I've done something even on the YouTube channel, and I've talked about it, like how do you become profitable and sustainable as a content creator. I have thoughts, I have things that I've done, even if you don't have like a huge audience, but like the thing is it's not for everybody. Just like not everybody's an entrepreneur. Like just because you got an iPhone doesn't mean like you're a content creator. Just because you just moved, no, let me say that. Just because you just moved to a country doesn't mean that you're a content creator. Capture the content of your life, 100%. Share with your fans, your friends and family, 100%. But doesn't mean you're a content creator. Like it doesn't, don't go abroad and think you're gonna become a content creator or a YouTuber or whatever, and that's gonna sustain you. Let's talk about that. That's another conversation. Have an actual plan. Okay. Yep, I almost fell for that. Live your best life here, but glad my conscience was hating. Look, again, I'll say this. There's a lot of people in, like, I'll say the Black living abroad space that are very new to the space. Particularly coming off of like the summer of 2020. I mean, I launched my podcast in May 2020. My podcast was in development though for longer than that. It wasn't like a knee-jerk kind of thing, and I was living abroad. There are people who are honest and they are reputable. And there are people who sell services that are reputable. So I'm not saying everybody who has a service, of course, I would say I'm reputable. The testimonials say I'm reputable. Okay, but there are definitely, people think it is not even a get-rich-quick scheme, but it's like a way to have influence or popularity or whatever. And a lot of people think that selling inspo is okay. And I mean, we're all adults, so do what you want to do. But there isn't really a purpose. There's a mission. There's not a driven. Like there's just nothing. It's just like, oh, I'm gonna get featured in Travel Noir and da da da. Okay, you can do that. So you can do that. That's fine. But I think, like anything, you want to get your advice from someone who's lived that life successfully for a while. And there's plenty of people who I get advice from who are not content creators. You would never know. They don't have a slamming IG, and they have been abroad for over 20 years getting financial advice, getting all different types of advice, real true blue advice going through not only geopolitical incidents, recessions, global recessions, like things that actually you need to know if you're living a life well lived. Not just inspo, not just like get free. Yes, get free to be sustainable. But also I think these are from people who are content creators who don't recognize, particularly Black American content creators, that don't recognize that moving abroad is not new. Moving abroad for Black Americans is not new. It's not. It's not fancy and it's not new. And we've been doing it even before Harlem Renaissance and things like that. Like, this is not new. It's been happening. So there's that too. There's that, you know. But it's kind of like, you know, when people discover something shiny and new, they want to tell everyone about it. I'm a vegan. I've been a vegan since 2010. And people approach me like that. They're like, did you know this? And I'm like, yeah. Did you know this? And I can't believe this. Because they're like brand new. They watched like a video. And I'm like, oh, okay, like, sure. Okay, sure. But they're excited about it. And you're like, okay. Yes, and actually more, but you know, that's just how it is. Okay, you're moving to Ecuador. That's lovely. You know who you should talk to in Ecuador? Oh, she's not in Ecuador right now. Oh, I gotta bring her. I'm gonna do a YouTube live with her. Siobhan. Yeah, I gotta write that down because she actually just had a huge medical incident in Colombia. And she documented it on Facebook. I meant to write to her, and I will do that. But anyway, Siobhan was actually in Ecuador for the pandemic. So she's a wealth of information. And she sells healthcare insurance, but American healthcare insurance. So she knows all this stuff. Oh yeah, I gotta bring her. I'm gonna bring her on. I don't know if I'm gonna have her on IG Live. I'm probably gonna have her on YouTube. Maybe. Let me write that down. Shout out to Siobhan. She's a wealth of information. And also, really interesting business owner. Her business is seasonal and how it works for her is like excellent. Really cool. Okay, y'all. Do you have any other questions about moving abroad, about healthcare abroad, about living a life well lived abroad, right? I say that a lot because it's not about being abroad. I've heard so many sad stories about people being miserable abroad and being too scared to admit it to their friends and their family and to go home. And I'm like, that's so crazy. You're too afraid of what other people will think about you to change your mind. And look, you don't necessarily have to go home, but for you to like change and to make yourself happy. To me, that tells me that you didn't go abroad for the right reasons in the first place. Because to go abroad, for me, what I mean by going abroad as a pathway to wellness is that it's for you. It don't matter what no one else thinks about it. It doesn't. If people are like, you should move to Paris, and you're like, Paris doesn't align with my wellness, with me living a life well lived. I can visit Paris. Duh. Like, you know, especially, you know, if you live in Europe, like, okay, I can visit Paris whenever I feel like. Doesn't mean I need to move there, right? So I find that people who don't actually take the time to know themselves, people who move out of escapism and romanticism, go abroad, things go left, because, you know, it's also life keeps on lifing. Things go left, and they're too afraid to tell people, and they're miserable abroad. And they want to blame it on like local population, or they want to be like, oh, Mexico, I can't believe it. Oh, Colombia, Spain, New Zealand. And it's like, no, it's you, right? So my philosophy is always about getting to know who you are, being honest. That's why I'm like, don't even tell people. Don't even tell people, unless it's like your partner. Like, you're like, well, we're doing this together, so I gotta tell you. But like, don't tell people. Even if people are super supportive of you, get really clear about what a life well lived means for you. What is working, what's not working? What is it not that you not only aspire to be? I say this a lot. It's not about your highest and best self. So like, now that I live in Spain, I'm a flamenco dancer and I drink wine and all the, no, girl, don't. I do love flamenco, but I really gravitate towards Southern Spanish culture because I'm a Southern girl. That's where the flavor resides in Spain for me. So I'm like, I like that. But no. For me, living a life well lived is being able to rest. Like, the pace at which I work, sometimes I feel guilty about it, but I'm like, I don't really gotta go faster than this. I live a sumptuous life. I wake up early because I like to wake up and not be bothered by people. I wake up early, I go to the gym, I kind of lollygag around, go to the market too much, gotta check my budget. I'm like, I just be going to the market just buying stuff. Because I have like my friends at the market, they have their stand, they got like the best stuff. They got like the best, they got scotch bonnet, they got all these different mushrooms, they got like curry leaves, they got like all the things, you know what I'm saying? Like, those are my people. I go over there, I buy too many things. They're like, oh, you're here. I'm like, y'all know what it is. I have a lifestyle in which I have a lot of free time if I want it. I tend to fill up my time with going and doing community things here, meeting up with other women entrepreneurs. There's actually podcasters here, always working on different projects. Like, that for me is a life well lived. Would I have that in other parts of the world? Sure, but there's also other parts of the world that may not have created that kind of ease for me. Perhaps it would have been financially, it wouldn't have been feasible, right? The budget for me to live in Spain is quite nice. I don't really have a lot of stress about it. I'm like, okay, sure. That for me is ease. So you have to decide, what is it that you are wanting? That's what I'm talking about with sustainability. It's not about escapism. If it's about escapism, anywhere you go is okay. And that's not really what it is, right? If anywhere outside the US is okay, then go to Finland. I mean, no disrespect to Finland, but it has a beach. People be like, I want a beach. Finland has a beach. It has sunlight all summer. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, be intentional. And because living abroad is a hassle, and this is the next chapter of your life, I implore you to not only like vision, but like really drop the seeds of this next chapter of your life. Drop them deep down inside your heart. Drop them into your hands, into everything that you're doing. You are cultivating a life well lived. A life well lived for me here in Spain didn't just happen to me, because life keeps on happening. Shit keeps on happening. It's something that I work for, and I know that some of you will cringe at work because of the exploitative nature of the word work in general, but especially in American culture. And you're like, girl, I'm not trying to go abroad and work. And also, girl, I'm not really trying to work either. Let me just be honest. I'm making some moves and doing some things, and I'm like, because I'm not trying to work next year. And I don't really work that much now. But I get you. But this is about cultivating a life well lived. This is your biggest project. This has nothing to do with work as we know it as being exploitative. This is about crafting a life well lived for yourself, for your family, for you to be who you already know that you are, for you to give yourself space to even become someone that you didn't even know that you are. How about that? You're like, I didn't even know this about myself. But now that I don't have this kind of stress, now that I put myself in this kind of position to really flourish, to really bloom, you should be surprising yourself, right? I always tell people, don't think about your highest and best self. That's what I was saying. Don't think about your highest and best self. Think about your favorite version of yourself. That's what I say. Because highest and best is like, I meditate, and I can meditate for an hour, and I don't curse anyone every day. And I've been good with my water. I drink all my water. I'm very like zen, nothing stresses me. And I'm not there. That's not what I'm aspiring to right now. I'm aligning myself with some habits, poquito poquito, right? Like, we'll get there. 20 years maybe, God willing. But think about your favorite version of yourself. What are you doing when you're in your favorite version of yourself? That's delicious. Like, think about it. When I think about my highest and best self, I'm like, oh, I need to be like on my best behavior, which is good. But my favorite version of myself, oh, she's great. She's awesome. She's so much fun. I love that favorite version of myself. And I think utilizing that favorite version of yourself, what is she doing? Who's she around? Like, what is that lifestyle? And think about all these different scenarios in which encompass your favorite version of yourself, and allowing that also to help craft your vision of a life well lived abroad to the places that can support that, right? I always tell people one of my favorite versions of myself is as hostess. I love, which is crazy because I'm an introvert and I don't really like people in my house. But I do like people, one, because I'm an introvert, I like intimate conversations. I like hosting that type of thing. That's my jam. I don't want all strangers weirdo, no. But I love crafting that kind of experience for people. Like, I tend to know lots of different people, and I tend to be a connector naturally. So having a dinner party, bring all these cool people together to know each other, like, that's me in my element. Pouring people wine, they're like, no, too much wine, no, drink some more wine. Like, that's me. Like, I love that. I love being a hostess. I love that kind of conviviality. I love that type of thing. And to live in a society that, one, Spain, are very social. They be so social. I feel like, do y'all have any, like y'all be in the streets? They just be out on the street. They out. They always outside. That's what it is. I be like, don't y'all want to go? No. They be out. They out. So that's fine. But I live in a lifestyle that supports that supports and cherishes friendships and families and being convivial. And I think that's also kind of one of the reasons I moved to Valencia, further south, was that, like, I need people to say good morning. And Valencia's a little bit better than that. But I think truly it's probably, like, I love Andalusia. But, like, Andalusia doesn't really work for a lot of other aspects of my life. But, like, I need people to say good morning. I need some hospitality. I'm a Southern girl. Like, these are the things this is part of the things you need to think about when you're moving abroad. Your favorite version of yourself. My favorite version of myself is, saying good morning and going to the market, buying too many things I don't need every day. I mean, yeah, you can buy fresh produce every day here in Spain. Like, yeah. But, like, I really don't need to. It's just me. Like, I don't need to do that. But, like, I like to, shoot the shit, like, I go to the bakery. I go straight from the gym to the bakery. No lie. I go straight from the gym and I'm like, oh yeah, I need some of that. Cause also, y'all, I go to the gym early. If you don't know, you gotta go to the bakery first thing in the morning. Maybe in the afternoon, but like, you trying to get the good bread. That's when all the abuelas get it. Anyway, I go straight from the gym to the bakery. The ladies are like, guapa, reina. And I'm like, I like that kind of stuff. That's part of me living a life well lived. That's my favorite version of myself. That's my 2 cents on it. And I think that, talking to many of my friends, actually one of my best friends, Nayana, who was actually my very first guest on the show. She lives in the Netherlands. She actually came down to Madrid and we kicked it. When we talk about it, because she's been abroad longer than I have. I think she's been abroad for like 10 years this year. But when we talk about, like, how do you actually stay abroad and be happy and content? Now, okay, happy, life is going to keep on lifing, okay? I don't want everyone to think, like, it's the magic pill. Like, no, like, bad things happen. People die, all right? People break up. Shit goes left. But having a life where you're like, I love this life. I like this life. This life supports me. I feel like I can do this. It takes cultivation. It takes it. It takes intention and getting your hands dirty. But it's your life, so you should want to. You should want to. And I know that, especially if you're coming from America, you're going to be tired and fatigued. And let me tell you something. That fatigue, it doesn't leave you just because you left the country. Like, it's taken me a long time, and I still feel very much tired. I feel the United States, it fatigues me a lot. And I feel guilt sometimes for being disconnected, because I'd be like, child, I cannot listen to some bullshit that y'all talking about. Can't do it. And I don't have to. But like that kind of systemic exhaustion, especially as Black women, girl, if you think it's gonna go away just because you move somewhere else, if you move to the continent or whatever, it doesn't actually go away. I think it's also something that has to be, you gotta get deprogrammed. You gotta, because think about it, there's a lot of depression, anxiety, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of hardening. You gotta soften. It does not happen overnight. And that's why it's so important to be intentional about going abroad, because you want to be in an environment that you can start to take off the burdens and all of the, bullshit. And it's going to take time. It's going to take time. All right, I'm losing my light because it is 9:30 here. Okay, y'all. Let me wrap this up with you. What y'all saying? I just want us all to win. How about that? I know I have a certain type of delivery. My sister tells me this all the time. I try to soften it. It doesn't usually work. I have a certain type of delivery, and I don't ever want to be pessimistic, because that's not actually what I believe in. I just want y'all to actually thrive. I want you to win. And I'm not going to sell y'all BS. I actually want y'all, because my thing is like, I know that all of you are not only smart and capable of handling the freaking truth and being like, okay, that's not for me, this is for me, and, making it work for you. But I want you to go in with your eyes wide open. Doesn't mean that you have to expect bad things to happen or da-da-da. But I just want you to go in with that awareness, because why not? You know what I mean? Like, go in with the awareness. Go in with understanding where you are and where you want to be. I think a lot of people who go abroad and romanticize it and da-da-da, they think life is just going to fall into their lap. They think it's a rom-com. It's not. I have a story. I don't know if I can tell the story. Okay, I'm going to tell a bit of the story. In a Facebook group, I don't think none of y'all in, there was a woman, a white woman, who posted about like her horrible experience dating, which, look, we can all like be like, yeah, girl, da-da-da, throw him to the curb. But what made it different was that she was like, the way she worded it was like she just expected, like, moving to Spain, she was gonna have one that's like Latin lover. And I was like, girl, do you not know Spanish? They just white people speaking Spanish. Like, flavor, sabor. They literally have a phrase that says sabor, sabor, which is like too much flavor. Basically, the way she worded it was like, she was just like, she just couldn't believe she wasn't having like an Eat, Pray, Love, or what is it, Under the Tuscan Moon, Sun, or whatever rom-com. And everybody was like, okay, this guy is an F-boy. We could talk about that, but your whole idea of what your life should be is problematic, and you're playing yourself. Okay? It was, if I could find it, I'm not gonna screenshot and exit out people's names, because that's kind of messed up. But it was so wild. I don't want you to be deluded, okay? About dating or anything. But y'all know I got Dating Abroad, part 1, part 2. And a whole IG and a whole YouTube series about it. Goodness. Yes, you moved to San Diego, you told like 4 people. Yo, I think it was Francis or somebody else. I've had people on my podcast, because I always ask, like, what do people think when you move abroad? And they're like, I told them when I was in the airport and I'd already checked in my luggage. And I was like, if that's what you gotta do, that's what you gotta do. That's what you gotta do. Come on. Finland has a beach. Yes, it does. Because do y'all know what I'm talking about? Y'all see these Facebook groups of people like, where's a good place with good education, a beach, and you're just like, there's literally millions of places. Like, what is good education? What type of beach? Do you want to live on the beach? Do you want access to the beach? Like, what? People are setting themselves up. People's like, oh, yes. They'll be like, oh, you know where you should move? Mexico. You know where you should move? The Gambia. And they just give you like these general... Anyway, I'm so happy this is what you needed. Savory exposure. I ain't trying to ever go back into an office, so I feel you. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm gonna do an IG live. I've been telling y'all I'm gonna do IG live on everything, because I'm gonna do an IG live about working for yourself abroad. Particularly, one, I am gonna open up my cohort next month, but I really want to tell y'all the real deal about building a business abroad. I was a consultant before I moved abroad, but this whole iteration of my business was completely built abroad, which has its pros and cons. I'm gonna tell y'all about that. Maybe I'll do that next week. How I did it, what are like the things that you need, and I'm gonna also be honest. Like, I obviously had a huge advantage because I'm a business strategist. So I'm not gonna be like anyone can do it. That's not true. Not that people can't do it, but I'm like, I'm a business strategist. So the way my mind works and my natural inclinations and also just past experiences have put me in a position where I can have my own business abroad. And where I still feel guilty when I'd be like, I haven't worked at all. Because one of my best friends works at a very, very major corporation. Like, she's under the CFO in New York at this major corporation. She got like 2 or 3 screens. She came and visited me in Valencia, and she was like, what? I was like, yep, this is where I work, at this little table. She was like, I was like, that's it. She was like, and do you need to work today? I was like, no, we went and got kava today. Anyway, but I'm not going to sell y'all on that either. I'm going to tell you the real deal about building a business abroad, 100%. You need to visit Madrid and Barcelona. Valencia is dope, I think. And a lot of people are discovering that. And a lot of people are moving here, which is... It is. I mean, enjoy it. But, you know. What prompted this conversation? This is actually, I have devolved from the original conversation, which was about healthcare. And then I just started being shady. I don't know, not shady. I just started talking about things that I think about and I don't talk about because I just scroll on by. I'm one of those. I just be like, let me just scroll on by. But definitely go back to the very beginning once I post this and watch it for the healthcare. This is what happened in the last IG Live. I was talking about hair care, and that devolved into a whole different conversation. But I think it was very useful. Either way. Yes, I want to be intentional and when be honest and truthful. We appreciate it. That's the only way I know how to be. I don't appreciate people who gatekeep, right? Because they'll be like, oh, just do this. And like, I tell people, if you're paying attention, I basically give everything away. I'd be like, I'll just get me talking. I'll be like, and this and that and do this and do that and do this. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in not being real and being like, I've had struggles, you know? I mean, my memoir, whenever that gets written, it's gonna be these Spain years. It's gonna be a page turner. It's gonna be a page turner. Yes. Okay, y'all. Thank you so much for rocking with me for so long. For an introvert, I am talkative. Yes, I am. Okay, y'all. I'll be back next week. If you have any questions in the meantime, between time, you can slide into my DMs. Though, please only slide into I don't have to tell y'all this, but slide into my DMs only about moving abroad and Flourish and Flooring. Something happened last week. I don't know if I was featured somewhere. I got a lot of DMs that had nothing to do with the podcast. And I was like, please, sir, remove yourself. It's weird. It's weird stuff. That doesn't usually happen to me. Anyway, if you're interested and if you need guidance, help about moving abroad, I do have Moving Abroad with Intention course that is launching next month. It is a 5-week course. We talk about, one, it has pre-recorded material, but it also has 5 live sessions. We get to talk with the community and with me about your moving abroad game plan. And it's really meant, if you do all the homework, for you to have a nice binder of information to go and to refer back to as you're making this decision, as you're moving abroad. So we talk about everything from visioning, which I think is really important, to getting a job abroad, money management abroad, currency, holding different currencies, you know. We talk about healthcare, we talk about making friends, we talk about homesickness and isolation. We really talk about like the major stages of moving abroad. That sounds like something you're interested in. Stay tuned because I'm going to be sharing more information about that soon. And I'd love to have you if it resonates with you. Okay, cool. All right, everyone. Thanks. See you, Janefa. Remember, everyone, it is not about going abroad, moving abroad. And it surely is not about just being abroad for the gram. No, it's about thriving abroad. So go abroad and cultivate a life well lived. See y'all next time. Bye.